Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World, where every word matters. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. As the war in Ukraine continues to dominate global headlines, the prospect of peace remains an immense challenge. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy recently highlighted the need for 200,000 European peacekeepers to enforce any potential peace deal, underscoring the severe imbalance in military capabilities between Ukraine and Russia. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has pledged to broker an end to the war. Joining us today on TVP World to provide insights into the complexities of achieving peace is Gary Tabach, former Chief of Staff, NATO Military Liaison Mission in Moscow. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Always great to be on TVP World with Benjamin. I have to apologize for my voice because due to global warming, it was so cold in Washington, D.C. in the inaugurations that even between the buildings, walking around, I lost my voice.
No, we do enjoy the deep resonance that you're bringing us, so really appreciate that. And on this note, we're talking about the inauguration. We're actually curious about Trump's position in all of this because, well, he has promised to bring an end to the war in a very rapid session. And of course, before he was saying that, he'd get it done in one day, and that timeline has kind of been pushed back a little bit. But do you think that him saying that there is an urgency to come to a negotiation table kind of showed his hand a little bit? Do you think this perhaps urgency to end the war on a negotiation table in and of itself would put Ukraine in sort of a disadvantage?
Well, Ukraine is in a disadvantage right now. It's not like it's an advantage because Ukrainians are retreating every day. And they're losing a lot of people. And there was just an awful attack by missile attack on Dnieper city that has horrible destruction and a lot of casualties. So this is going on for 3 years, and it has to stop. And I think that they're in disadvantage now. So we need to stop. We need to stop the murdering of people and destruction of the cities. I think that President Trump is the type of individual who does not like wars. He just doesn't like when people get killed or die. Unless, yes, he said originally, I'll get it done in 20. He said it only once, but all the reporters, you know how they are, man. They grabbed it onto those 24 hours and they said, oh, well, he used metaphor. And he uses it many times. He has these things. But usually we in the United States, we give a president 100 days to get his stuff together. Of course, but not the President Trump. He never gets 100 days. So he doesn't get it in a day. He has to get everything done immediately. But what he did say in his recent press conference, I think he was, again, he was trolling. He said that he wants to bring peace and he's going to do it quickly between Russia and Ukraine. And there are a lot of Russians are dying in Russia. And he was friends, not friends, but he got along with Putin and he can talk to him because, he likes Russian people. And this is what he said. 60 million Russians died in a World War II, helping us to defeat the enemy. So it wasn't that the Soviets were fighting the war and we were kind of helping them. He turned it around. I don't think he would have made that mistakes. Plus 60 million. So he's saying, even though you were helping us, you lost 60 million. You want to fight again? And then he says it could be done easy way. It could be done the hard way. But the easy way is usually the better way. And then, of course, he said if Putin refuses to do that, he will put like real sanctions and embargoes on Russia. And their economy already suffering a great deal. And he will give all kinds of weapons to Ukraine, everything that we got. But Ukrainians will also have to go to total war because there were different kinds of wars. There's low-intensity war. I apologize. And then there is a total war. During World War II, we all went to total war. Everything we did was when, shut down our borders. Every factory, every school, every movie was made just for the war effort. In Ukraine, it's not at that point. So he's saying, then you'll have to draft all your men, all your, people who are capable to fight, go in, and we give them all the weapons in the world, And you go. Plus, he says, I have other things. He doesn't open up all the cards. So right now, Ukraine in a disadvantage. Hopefully, he'll be able to change it. Really hope, and I hope it will happen soon, because as you can see, Ukraine is being, it continues to be destroyed. Yesterday, for example, there was that attack on Dnieper.
Right, and it does seem like the Kremlin isn't taking it that seriously so far when it comes to this negotiation talk, at least when it comes to the conditions that they've been listing, or what Zelensky said their conditions were. This seems very unacceptable. For example, downsizing the troops from like 800,000 to only 50,000, and a lot of territorial concessions. It basically doesn't look like they're very serious about coming together to actually have this negotiation. Does it mean that perhaps Russia still has any steam to go on? Are they trying to, I don't know, kind of start the bargain with a bit more kind of favorability on their side and to negotiate it down? What do you think their tactic is over there?
I don't know, because again, what are they going to negotiate? What is it that they have that we need from Russia? They're depending on us. They're depending on Europe. They're depending on China. We need to bring China over to our side. Plus, again, because you're good people, and we're all good people, and we tend to think of Russia and Putin as a country and a leader who is a responsible leader to his people, but it's not so. We're dealing with a terror state like Iran, we like Hamas, and Hamas is now saying they had victory. No, they're victorious. Their entire that strip of land that they had, and they could have made a pearl out of it with all the money they did, but they chose to commit suicide and kill innocent people. But yet they're saying they won. They won. Russia probably is acting, or maybe acting in the same way, because you have a terror country with a KGB thug that is running it for way too long, whose brain is already poisoned. That much power for that much long is a poison.
All right. Zelensky said that in order for peace to be maintained, he calls for about 200,000 European peacekeepers. How feasible do you think that request is?
That is very difficult. That's not going to happen very quickly. Once, twice, 200,000 is an army. It's a lot of people. And it's going to be a coalition of which countries. And here's where Putin may start saying, no, that's not going to happen. 200,000 foreign troops near my border, even though they're peacekeepers. But in my experience, and I was a United Nations peacekeeper, and during Abkhazia and Georgian conflict, the United Nations really never resolved anything, nor has it ever prevented anything. There were peacekeepers in Israel, in Lebanon, and they took off. They just took off, and the same thing happened in Georgia and Abkhazia. We had the same thing in Somalia, in Mogadishu. So I don't believe that those things. They probably work for a little period of time until the countries get their wind back together when the war stops, and they just stand on a separation line. But once one of those countries becomes aggressive again, they don't do anything. It's not a fighting force.
So what do you think NATO could more realistically do when it comes to facilitating and supporting either like a peacekeeping mission, or kind of ensure there's more security guarantees for Ukraine?
You're talking about NATO?
Be it NATO, be it Western allies, because, well, we have to face it. Ukraine won't be able to hold the Russians back by themselves.
No, not right now, but maybe hopefully one day they will. Well, one thing for NATO, they have to pay their share, and this is what President Trump is making them do, saying now you're going to pay 5%, not 2%, which even 2% you're not paying. But as you know how President Trump does, they'll settle at 3%, which is also a great increase. So the NATO will be able to stand their ground and to help Ukraine in that sense. And then there should be guarantees. I mean, again, what guarantees have a very It's a very liquidish statement, especially when it comes to international affairs, because, if my refrigerator breaks, I have a guarantee and they'll bring me a new one, or they'll fix this one. If Putin, we guarantee that no borders will be violated for Ukraine, Putin comes and takes Crimea, what are we supposed to do? Replace it with Alaska or Greenland, maybe? It's very difficult to guarantee those things. A lot of it depends on Ukraine itself, what Ukraine is going to do, how it's going to approach the situation, how they're going to deal with a bureaucracy, how are they going to deal with corruption, how they're going to rebuild when they'll get that break, ceasefire break. How quickly will they rebuild their weapon industry, armor industry, and so forth? Of course, with our help, they should do it. And hopefully we'll be able to engage quickly enough, not like those 3 years where we're just nickeling and diming them by dripping help so they just survive.
All right. I actually wanted to ask you about this as well, because like you mentioned, there has been a kind of slow walk when it comes to aid to Ukraine, which a lot of people argue is why they are stuck in such a bad situation in the first place. Now, one of the things that Trump says that he wouldn't act on Russia if they don't come to the negotiation table is sanctions, which we have been seeing being applied to Russia. Is this the same situation where perhaps there's even a more aggressive wave of sanctions, something that can even go farther than what the previous administrations have already been doing?
No, because the sanctions that we applied before, Trump applied sanctions in 2017, I believe, over Crimea or Russia, but they were like sanctions, there was industry mostly, few individuals, but under Biden administration, the sanctions, and this is what everybody was saying, they're not working for our benefit or Ukrainian benefit. They're working for Russian benefit because they couldn't import anything, but they could export oil, they could export gas, they could export everything that they made money. So they made a lot of money on it. And then, but they couldn't buy things for us. Yes, they couldn't buy for us, but they can that way rebuild their own industry. So their economy started to grow. So those sanctions that we placed on them are idiotic. And this is what Trump's saying. This is going to be backwards now. We're not going to sell anything to them, and we're not going to buy anything from them. We're going to isolate them. We're going to embargo them. And those sanctions are going to be rough on Russia.
So perhaps this will hopefully get Russia to the negotiation table. Of course, things are still developing, and we'll see how it turns out. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your input and insight.
Whatever it's going to be, everybody's going to be unhappy, however it ends. But the killing has to end.
That's usually the case. Well, thank you so much, Gary. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.